Thank you. We now will move into the regular City Council study session. So welcome to the Mesa City Council study session for November the 12th. The first item on our agenda for this meeting is to hear a presentation and discuss the city's new quarterly financial status report. Candace, welcome.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. What we'd like to do this morning is just kind of do an overview of a new financial status report that we'll be posting on the Office of Management and Budget's website on a quarterly basis. Over the last year, as we've been working with our new financial system and working with the data within that system, we've been trying to come up with our Financial Services Department and our Office of Management and Budget has worked together to come up with a status report, something that would be kind of a high-level view of our two unrestricted funds. Those are our general governmental funds, which is our general fund and our quality of life kind of combined, and then also our enterprise fund. In Legistar, and what was sent out to Council is a link, but I want to kind of show where to get to it if you were coming in just off of the page. Off of our main Office of Management and Budget page, at the bottom we have added an icon with the quarterly financial status report. So each quarter this report will be posted out to the site here and then be listed here. So at this point we have two. We have the year end for last year, fiscal year 14-15, and then the new one for this quarter. So what I'd like to do is just kind of walk through it. It is mobile app friendly. What that means is, so I'm going to be showing it to you going in through a PC through the normal application this way. But if you were to pull it up on your mobile application, Android or iPhone or iPad, you'd be able to zoom in, zoom out, scroll through, and so forth. So it's a little actually more easy, more user-friendly actually on a mobile app than it actually is as I'm showing it to you today. But we can kind of scroll in here. The way it's laid out is the front page is really an executive summary. So if you just really wanted a high level of what's going on for this particular quarter, you could just come to the first page. And we do have a summary. I know this one does look a little busy because it is a year end. So we kind of had a little more to say at the end of year for 14-15. But what it will do is the top section here will actually be an overview of the two funds. Where did we end the status compared to where we thought we would end? So when we're looking at the year end, and this is our preliminary year end because we have closed the 14-15 fiscal year as of this point. There's not an official close, though, because our external auditors are still working with our Financial Services Department. So at the time that when they're done and we have the final review of that year, we'll do an official close and we'll update this report as needed for that. So that's why it says preliminary versus a final. But what I want to draw attention to are the areas at the bottom. Oops, sorry. So if you look at the bottom, we have some color coding. What that does is allow you to take a quick look at how we're doing overall in the funds. Blue means we are exceeding our anticipated where we would end, whether it's revenues or expenses or whether we are net income. Gray means we're on track. So we're on track with where we thought we would be. There's nothing significant deviations, negative or positive. Orange is a cautionary. That means we are deviating in a negative amount. Then we want to take a look at that. And red means we want to actually go in there and monitor and see what's going on in that particular category. Okay. So we just kind of use those as indicators. Sometimes we deviate, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a known item, and sometimes it's just different than the plan. So these are just indicators to let you know where you can kind of go in quickly if you want to take a look. And we'll explain that in the comments at the top if there's something that we need to explain. For example, in this particular one, as we're looking at 14-15, how we ended last year, we do have one red category, our community development and outreach on the expenditure side. And when we look into that, that's because we had additional activity in our building permits. So there was additional expenses, but we also had additional revenues that offset that, but the category is just expenses. So it actually looks like it's in the cautionary or monitoring stage. Okay. These are all links. So if you do want to go into a particular area, if you link into that, it will click into and give you a little bit of a summary of that particular category, what our adopted budget was, what the year-end estimate was. So this was at the time that we adopted our 15-16 budget, we had given you estimates of where we thought we would end the year. This is now going back and comparing where we did end the year with where we thought we would end the year. So how does that compare? And then also any notes would be at the bottom that would explain any deviations or anything that might be of significant nature in that particular category. The top can always bring you back to your main page. If you want an overview of just the revenues, you can click on the revenues. So anything with a color code is a link. So if you click on the revenues, it would give you, you can actually get the numbers behind the coding as you go through there. So, and then these are all links here. So this is just a different way of moving through the documents. You can return to the revenue, and you can return to the executive summary. If you look at it on your mobile app, you do have the ability, if you actually zoom out, to see all of the slides at one time and just pick which slide you want to go to. That's kind of the cheat version of going into whichever slide you want to go into to take a look at that. But that's basically how it's set up. I do want to point out, and let me go to one and explain a little bit of the colors on here. And you'll see it better when I show you the first quarter for this year. The way we've got it set up is if you look at the actuals here for 14-15, this is the law enforcement expenditures. This includes the police department and the municipal court together. And you see that little bit of green at the end of that. What that means is that they came in under where we thought they would end up for the year. So green is good. Okay. On the revenue side, if we look at one of our revenues, I don't want that one. Sorry, let me grab a different one. I think we did really good on our revenue, so I may have to show it to you on the first quarter. Okay. I'm going to flip over to the first quarter real quick for this year so I can show you one. I'm trying to find, yeah. Last year was all good, so I couldn't show you any red. I couldn't find a red one to show you. So I'm going to go to first quarter. First quarter does not mean it's bad, but I'm just going to show you how we progress. So the way this is set up is that we would look at the first quarter and would say, there's the year-end estimate for, this is for licenses, fees, and permits, and our year-end estimate is $18.9 million. That's where we think that we will end at the end of the year. So far to date in our first quarter, we've received 19% of what we think we're going to receive over the year, and compare that to last year, which is 22%. So the red is all of what we expect to get over the course of the year. So what will happen is each quarter, that red will get filled up with the actuals as we progress during the year. At the end of the year, if there is still red, that means we did not hit our targets. We came in below. So they're just I just want to show you the kind of the green and the red. So this is the red that shows you this is what we expect to get going forward. And if you look on the expenditure side, we do the same thing for law enforcement. Like I said, last year they came in under. So this is where we are here. So for law enforcement for this year, our estimate is $168.7 million for the year. So far, we have spent 23% of that. And each quarter that will go forward until the end of the year, if there's green showing, that means we came in under our anticipated budget. Really this morning, we just wanted to kind of give you an overview, let you know that it is out there. It's posted to the website, kind of how to navigate through the different windows and what the different screens mean. And we'll be updating this as each quarter closes, probably about the mid-month of that month following the end of the quarter close.
Great, thank you. So just to reiterate, this is up live now.
This is up live.
Folks at home can log on. Tell us again, if somebody wants to view this at home or on their mobile device, where do they go?
Let me kind of come out here. So when you come into the City of Mesa page, and you go into the City Hall, the quickest way is to go straight to the Office of Management and Budget. It was right here in the top right-hand corner. That'll bring you to our homepage. And then when you scroll down, there's an icon right here. This is Quarterly Financial Status Report. So that icon will always be there. And when you click into that, it'll have all of the quarterly reports that we have published thus far.
Okay.
So it should really be just 2 clicks away. Once you get to the home site, it's 2 clicks away to get to the financial status. Again, this is a high level. This is not a transactional look at what's going on, but a high-level status of where we budgeted compared to where we think we're going to be. So when we look at the first quarter, all of these comparisons, come back to the home site here, or the first page. This is all compared to budget. So how are we doing so far compared to budget? Is there anything that we learned in the last part of last year or the first quarter of this year that is changing where we think we're going to end with our budget?
Great. Mr. Kavanaugh.
Just comment, I appreciate the this new format and particularly the notes that are accompanying each one. I think because that's where I usually zero in on, and I think residents will as well. I mean, again, I'm looking at screen 22, which was the water summary, and you talk about the fact that the revenues came in due to decrease in activity, but you also noted that we had a large amount of rainfall in that fiscal year, which directly contributes to that change. And so I think it's very helpful for residents to understand that we do analyze why the revenues change when there are particular events like that. So I found the notes very, very useful. Thank you.
I think certainly council and people who have been paying attention to these meetings know that there's a big push now in Mesa City government. We're participating in What Works Cities. We're trying to have an open data approach to the way we deal with the public. So we're trying to be as transparent as possible, and I think this is a perfect example of that the folks at home, anyone in city government or somebody on the other end of the planet can pull out their smartphone and know every detail of our finances and have a up-to-the-minute snapshot of how we're doing and how good we're doing or how bad we're doing. So I think this is very consistent with the whole attitude that we're trying to adopt here, being very transparent, being very open data. So I think it's a great step. Mr. Richens.
Maybe as a clarifying of up to the minute, when will these, what's the lag time between posting a report?
This is it's meant to be a quarterly report.
Right.
And that's what we do to the analysis that we do. So we close the quarter on the 5th working day of the following month is when the finance department, that's the target for closing the month. And then we need about a week after that.
So the quarter ends October 30th.
Right.
You guys by November 5th.
5 business days under the following month. The month is closed.
Okay.
And then we have about another week after that for us to do the analysis and to write the notes.
And then
It should be posted by the mid month of the following month.
So less than 2 weeks after the end of the quarter.
Right. So we have a
the public will
10-day.
have
Our
access to
current target is 10 business days.
So
after
just
the
say 2
month.
weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
This is far too transparent. I don't know if people are going to be able to handle this. This is well done. This is really impressive. I have to admit. Are there any other municipalities that are doing much stuff like this?
There are a few municipalities in the
what league are
valley,
we in
yes,
now
who are
here?
doing some financial reporting similar to this. And we actually did look at some of those municipalities and picked the pieces that we liked the best and then added some other things for ourselves about what our data looks like and what we thought would be the most valuable to the reader who's actually looking at the data. And it is the notes, as Vice Mayor Kavanaugh mentioned, it's really the notes that I think create the best value of the report, and so it's the notes that actually take us a little while to do the analysis and put that together.
Do we have a communications plan put together to communicate this out to our residents?
Yeah, now that we have this ready and it's uploaded, or we want to share it with council, and then we can start promoting it and letting people know they can go to it. Certainly, and like as the mayor said, that's kind of one of our initiatives now as we start putting this information out, is make sure it's not just there, but people know that it's there so they can come get it, look at it.
Mr. Kavanaugh.
Well, longtime observers of City Hall will know that there's always like a cloak and dagger conspiracy theory about municipal government in terms of how we operate, where our funds are, and really how we're doing. And there's a certain element that never seem to believe anything that we say. And here you've laid it all out. It's all there in public for everyone to have access, equal access to. And I think, again, the analysis notes are very objective. They're not subjective, they're objective in saying, here's where these numbers came from, here's what we attribute it to. And I think it takes a lot of the mystery out of what we do and hopefully increases trust in what we do. And so I appreciate you picking the best pieces from other communities for this.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. You're a hit, Candace.
All right, thank you.
Nice job. Okay, thank you. So that was just an update. There's no action required there.
It just to let you know it's there, yeah.
Great, thank you. Next item on our agenda, 1B, is to discuss and provide direction regarding the process and planning for the City Council Strategic Planning Session. Mr. Brady, why don't you update us on where we're at on our strategic planning sessions?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, so we're getting to that time of year when we typically begin discussing conducting a strategic plan process. I know there's been some interest in Council and maybe looking at a different format and approach. So keeping that in mind, one of the proposals would be to spend some time with each of the council members to kind of discuss an upcoming strategic planning process. So what we'd like to do, I guess first steps, would be to meet with each of the council members to discuss what that process may look like, or not the process, I guess the process, but the time that we would have to spend together, how you'd like to use that time as we sit down to talk about a strategic planning process. So the first step would be we'll invite each of the members of the council to meet with the mayor and I to kind of have that conversation and discussion, get your feedback on what you would like to see happen during a strategic planning event's not the right word, but meeting, and then put all that together, get back to the council, and then start really probably the more difficult part of scheduling a calendar that we could get together and have that conversation in the near future. So as we plan for the next year's activities and get in ahead of time before we start working on the budget. So just wanted to share that with you and make sure you're comfortable with moving forward with that process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have heard from several council members a desire to really take full advantage of the strategic planning process this year, and I think that's great. I endorse that and am anxious to do that. So I like the plan that Mr. Brady has outlined. So the way I see it is the beginning really right away. The city manager and the mayor would meet with each council member, and so that we're not starting from scratch at our strategic planning meeting, where we're not brainstorming or identifying ideas for the first time, but rather, so I would ask that if you agree with this model, I'd ask you to kind of start thinking of what your priorities are, where you'd like to see the city go, what your concerns are, what you think we do well, what we don't do well, so that, and then when we sit down with the city manager, we can hopefully get fairly far along so that when it comes time to come together as a group, we're not starting from scratch. My hope this year, just speaking for myself, is that we come up with some goals that are measurable. And then as part of this What Works City campaign that we're a part of, I would love for city staff to develop for us a dashboard that corresponds to the strategic goals that we've set for ourselves as an organization. So that, in other words, if we've made a goal on customer service or on whatever the topic is, that we're getting, just like Candace has shared with us a moment ago, we're getting updated. You know, here's the numbers. We're either trending in a good direction or not, or we're stagnant. And if so, then hopefully our meetings and we can use this strategic plan maybe more than we have in the past to monitor how we're doing as far as our progress goes. So I think this is a good direction. I appreciate Mr. Brady and the suggestion of doing it this way, but obviously anxious to hear council's thoughts on whether you think this is a good direction or not. But I would suggest that we start doing this right now and then try to have the meeting that we normally have maybe sometime right after the holidays, first part of the year, so that certainly during the first part of January we can hopefully come up with some strategic, measurable goals as a city. Thoughts, Council? Mr. Kavanaugh.
Thank you. I think this is a positive approach. Looking back on all the different kinds of strategic planning meetings we've had throughout the years, it's been certainly kind of an alphabet soup of planning. And one of the things that I have felt lacking is understanding from my colleagues what the priorities are that they're working on in their individual district or projects or issues or things like that. And I think this can be a very helpful tool well in advance of the budget process to understand what each of the 7 of us are working on, either goals for the coming year within your district or goals for a particular project that is a citywide thing. Because over the years we've worked and given direction to move ahead on various projects that move through our committees, and then in budget time, you know, they may be secondary that particular year for a whole variety of things. It's a chance to kind of refresh recollections on what we've looked at in the past, and also to have just an understanding of what is going on in Southeast Mesa, Northeast Mesa, or Fiesta District. So we have that common understanding as we move into making budget decisions. And so I think it can be a very useful tool, both again to really hear from each of us in terms of what we're working on right now, what we hope to do the coming year, how that interweaves with the budget allocations that we do.
Thank you. Any other thoughts or generally in consensus that we like this direction? And that if so, then I think you ought to just expect to hear from city staff, and we'll start scheduling these meetings right away so we can start to hang some flesh on these bones. Okay. Thank you very much, Council. Next item on the agenda is to take action on the appointment of the Early Childhood Education Task Force. We're not quite ready to proceed with this, so we're going to continue that item to a future council meeting. Next item is approval of minutes from the executive session held on October the 1st, 2015. Is there a motion? And a second. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Thank you. Motion passes. Next item is acknowledge receipt of minutes of various boards and committees. Is there? Thank you. Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Thank you. Item 4 here, reports on meetings and conferences attended. I know we just did this a few days ago. Any updates since then? Okay. Thank you. Hearing none. Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson.
Just wanted to throw out a reminder that this Sunday at 2 o'clock out at Eastmark is their our inaugural safety day for the community.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to report the other night I attended your youth committee meeting, which I think was very positive for the residents and another further example of why our students should consider applying in the future to be part of it. They were doing a tour of light rail, the Mesa stations, understanding the reasoning for light rail coming into the community, why we think it's important, the uniqueness of each of the stations that we have. And I think it was a great way to showcase for those students an important element of what we do as a community. And I think it's a great example that I think your staff has put together a great program for kids to participate in.
Thank you very much. I agree with you. Mr. Luna.
I want to thank city staff for the parade yesterday. We had a wonderful turnout yesterday. I think it was probably the parade that with the largest attendance, and I know that Neighborhood Services had the banners recognizing the veterans, as well as our free concert over at the Mesa Arts Center. So I want to thank all the volunteers and the staff that participated in it.
Thank you. Amen to that as well. Mr. Thompson.
Natalie, do we have final numbers for what we raised through donations?
So, Mayor and Council, we conducted a concert yesterday, a benefits concert right after the parade, and it was great. We had probably about 400 people that came and participated, and we collected cash at that time, and we got a little over $500 just for cash on hand. And we also had 2 organizations that sponsored us: the Mark Center and the professional union of the firefighters, Mesa firefighters. And so, all told, we're right around $4,500. Which was a great start. I think we proved the concept, and we'd like to continue this on an annual basis. Thank you for your support.
What is that? What is those donation dollars going to be used for?
Those donation dollars are going to be used for Housing Our Heroes, the program that we have. The mayor started with his challenge, but also that Councilmember Thompson and Councilmember Glover have a task force. This is all about helping our homeless veterans get into stable housing, and to also work with all of these different partners, including the VA, to put and make sure they have supported services so that they stay in that housing and are successful. So the dollars are for gap, services that maybe aren't funded through state and federal dollars, and things like bringing in furniture so that when they come into their home, it is a home and it's not a vacant space for them. And we've just found that really helps them be more successful. So the dollars are really important, and we thank the community for their assistance.
Thank you. I know this isn't an agenda item, but if you don't mind, Mr. Smith, at the risk of saying too much about this topic, yesterday was Veterans Day. One of the things that we highlighted, again, was I think the great progress we've made. Thank Councilmember Glover and Thompson for leading our veterans, housing the veterans issue. We're expecting to house 70 veterans over the course of this year. So that's a lot of that is due, frankly, to the work that's been done previous to this initiative when we got the whole BASH voucher program up and running in the city of Mesa. But that's no small accomplishment. So thank you to everyone that has made that possible. I think I'm proud of the way our community's responded to that. Any other items, council members, under meetings and conferences attended? If not, next item is scheduling of meetings and general information. Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder, the Mesa Music Festival starts tomorrow, November 13th, and goes through Sunday, November 15th. It's the inaugural year of the festival. There will be over 250 musical acts performing performing both at the indoor and outdoor venues along Main Street. And it is a free event, so we invite everybody down this weekend. Also, this Saturday, November 14th, is Getting Arizona Involved in Neighborhoods, GAIN. It's an annual event. We encourage everyone to participate and then become involved in the neighborhood watch programs. Our next study session will be November 19th at 7:30 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing nothing else on the agenda, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Then moved and second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. We are adjourned.